Welcome to our week 7 and our last
Final week.
final week and our last virtual office hour today. I can't believe how quickly the course has gone by.
Right.
We're well into week 7, and this week's topic is food allergies and intolerances, and we will talk about that a little bit. Actually, speaking of food allergies and intolerances, every time I write that, I get a spelling error. That intolerances is not a word.
Yeah.
That it's, but I don't. Singular doesn't seem to work either. So
Right.
forgive me. In past courses, I've gotten some emails, or not emails, but posts from English professors and such about some of the ways that words are used. And forgive me, some of my southernness may sometimes seep through. But this is week 7, and this is our last virtual office hour. The course will not officially end until November 10th. So we leave the course open a good full week after actually the content week is over. And that week is just an opportunity for students that are obtaining a certificate or statement of accomplishment to finish up some assignments, finish up some quizzes. If you're wondering at what quota and the parameters for earning these certificates, that's under grading guidelines and also under the course syllabus on the course page. So you can check that out. But you will have that extra week to get any of those in if you're interested in doing that. And then after November 10th, which I believe is a Monday, we will tabulate grades because we actually have to generate the grades, quote. And at that point, we will be awarding the certificates and the statements of accomplishment. And we will email everyone and let them know that those are available on the course page for you to download from your account, I believe, is how it works. So we'll give you all the details after that happens. A few things about this week, too. I did add on the course page a link to a Vanderbilt feature that was in one of our internal publications that included Dr. Stacy Doris, who was gracious to let us interview her for this week, where she's featured in that article. And it has a lot of good information written more from a news and lay perspective, but quotes her and also provides some tips and guidelines in terms of food allergies. So you can look for that at the bottom of the course page. A couple other housekeeping things, so to speak, is that if you would please repeat the Rate Your Plate at the end of the course, I'd appreciate that. I know it's not a perfect instrument. And remember, too, that your score on that assessment is not your grade. So, and by submitting it, you actually get a little extra credit. My students love extra credit. So it's, I think, 2.5% of your grade, or 2.5 points. Both would count for 5%. So last time there was some confusion because some students actually earned a grade above 100% because of the opportunity with the Rate Your Plate. And speaking of Rate Your Plate, I just wanted to share one thing. I pulled some of the statistics from the first Rate Your Plate from the beginning of the course. And the students that we had about 9,000 submissions of the first Rate Your Plate, which is pretty amazing. And the average students, I think it was a score of 20 was the max on that instrument.
I think it was out of 20.
Out of 20. The average, quote, score was 15, which is actually pretty high compared to the norm of the public. So that tells me, and we have some other things I'll share in a minute, that validates that many of the students coming into this course already have pretty heightened awareness about nutrition, and overall, many already are making pretty positive choices. Just for choosing a nutrition course is kind of an indication that they're doing that. The other thing, too, is there's an end-of-course survey from Coursera that they love for you to complete as well. So that's all there. And I think that's all in terms of, can you think of anything in terms of just course information, wrap up that we need to share? Okay. Well, I wanted to share, and then Heather's going to share a few things too. Just some kind of FYI interesting aspects about the course. I mentioned the Rate Your Plate already. But I shared this a little bit in the announcement, but we ended up with almost 33,000
Wow.
students in the course enrolled. That doesn't necessarily mean that all those 33,000 participated
Right.
fully in the course, but that's how many actually enrolled. And that's pretty good for a third offering and with so many other potentially competing courses.
Right.
That now means that we've gotten close to reaching 180,000 people
Wow.
between
With three
the,
offerings.
between the three offerings.
Okay.
And certainly only a percentage of those earn certificates or statements of accomplishment, but there's many that participate that aren't necessarily, that's not their motive, that
Mhm.
they're watching videos, they're just engaging and discussing and sharing perspectives in the discussion forum. So there's many ways that people participate and engage in these courses. It's also interesting that of these 33,000, we had 179 different countries
Wow.
represented.
Wow.
179 countries from around the world enrolled in the course. And we had 26% or almost 9,000 people from emerging economies. So not
Oh.
necessarily North America, Europe, but other countries around the world that would be considered emerging countries. And we had 56% from outside America. So, and the United States represented, I don't have that on here, it got cut off. But that the main point is that this is certainly a global international course. And for me, the first time I taught it, I didn't really, when I was developing the course initially, and even in the early stages, not knowing, having not worked in this kind of format before, I was really shocked and delighted by the global involvement. And, also knew some of the, quote, centric aspects of the way nutrition is often taught. So it's been wonderful to have, global perspectives on the discussion forum, the food labeling, the food guides from around the world, that all the other things that we've learned from international students that taught me.
Yeah, I think it teaches us. And then just think how many other students are in the class with you. So you can just learn from all their perspectives.
Yeah,
too.
so the students benefit from one
Each
another
other.
and their
Mhm.
perspective. The early weeks of the course, someone asked about what you had for lunch. And that had a lot of posts early in the course. And it was fascinating to read from the many countries around the world what a, quote, typical lunch someone might pack would be, and how, it's not just peanut butter and jelly and potato chips. It's
Right.
all kinds of things out there for lunch. So that was fascinating. In terms of, we had about 60% female, 40% male in the course. Average age, the most number of students were in the 25 to 34 range.
Okay.
And when you look at it age by age, it was mid-30s was the average age of our students. So they're not necessarily college age students, as some people assume, but it's adult learners. Not that college students aren't adults, but and most of our students have already completed a college level degree or higher. So, we certainly had others. Majority were very well educated individuals that were often just looking to either expand their knowledge base, learn more, and a host of other reasons. Most students were employed full-time that are taking the course, certainly, again, not all. And so it's and very few are full-time students while they're taking Coursera courses, that they're not actively in an educational program, that this is kind of something that they're doing for lifelong learning, for interest, and in many cases also to supplement career choices or career developments.
Right.
Let's just see a couple other things that I just thought were interesting, because at the end of the course, I tend to try to start pulling some of the information from the course, is the majority of our students, when they were asked early in the course, in terms of a healthy diet, healthy, well-balanced diet, I either do all you can, feel you make positive choices at least 75% of the time. That second offering was no, I should, but, and then the third one was, just let taste and convenience guide me, kind of leave me alone. Well, we had very few people that fell into that leave me alone category, which is not surprising. Who would take a nutrition course if you said, leave me alone?
Right.
And I have that same kind of statistical finding with my college class, that students that choose to take nutrition, that I don't have a lot that are saying, leave me alone.
Right.
But within the general population, it's going to be a higher percentage.
Mm-hmm.
But what was interesting was that for the students in the Coursera course that took answered this initial question, 72% reported within the first video that they feel they make positive choices most of the time. So, that was kind of interesting that, you enrolled in a nutrition course, maybe you already feel you're eating healthy, many of them, but maybe just to either affirm what you're doing, just learn more about the science itself. So that's interesting. The other thing too was when you looked at the health of Coursera students, that actually our Coursera students were reported being less healthy than the comparable survey that was done by in the general public by the International Food and Information Council. They found that about 60% of people reported that they were either in excellent or very good health, 60%. With our Coursera group, it was 46%. And more people reported being in less than positive health. So what that tells me is, number one, the age of our students may be a little bit higher. Health issues
to improve,
and that they're looking for guidance and information, and that they're more motivated because of that to make nutrition changes. So these are certainly just hypothesis on my part. 55% of our students reported that they are actively trying to lose weight. And that was the exact number from the IFIC survey. So a little bit more than half are interested in weight loss, which again may be a reflection of some of the health status topics. And then in terms of their diet, this kind of plays back talking about 44% of our students reported that their diet is either extremely healthy or very healthy. And in the American public, it was 23%. So that's big. 44% of Coursera students thinking their diet's very or extremely healthy, with only 23% in that survey. What that tells me too is this was a question that was literally in the first week within one of the first videos, is that you must think you already know what an extremely healthy diet is. And of course it can look many ways, but that was kind of interesting that, it kind of shows too that many of our students already had,
idea or knowledge that what is healthy,
or perception of what is healthy.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. I probably should have asked that question maybe again.
Later on,
and see what if they had made changes or whether they looked at things maybe a little differently. And during the food label week, one of the questions was how often you read food labels. And let's see, 60-70% of our students read them all the time or usually. And many reported too that they do, but they only do it when they first consider purchasing an item. The first time they pick it up, that they don't necessarily read it after that.
Yeah, once they get hooked on a product.
Right. Or they evaluate it then. So that was kind of interesting. The other survey too that I pulled information on was the supplement survey, which was during the third week of the course. And what was interesting too is that 88% of our students reported using dietary supplements either daily, occasionally, or several times a week. That's huge.
Wow,
88%. In the other surveys, and they vary, it's usually 50 to 60%
for
people.
United States or the world.
So, it's definitely higher than other surveys for our student body, so to speak, that many people are taking supplements for one reason or another. What do you think is the number one supplement they take?
Would it be calcium or multivitamin?
Multivite was number one. And number two was omega-3s, like a fish oil supplement. Number three was vitamin D, and number four was calcium. So when you looked at what people took most frequently, What was also interesting was that when you looked at where people got the advice on supplements and guidelines for how to take supplements, what to take, it was equal between healthcare providers, getting their information from healthcare providers, versus the internet or Google. So it was equal. People are, both sources. And 70% of our students reported that they had confidence that the supplements they were taking were both safe and effective. So, a pretty high confidence level in their supplements. And that week we did the supplement assignment where students evaluated dietary supplements. And, they may have taken this survey before they did that assignment. And I'm not sure if that would have changed how they maybe looked at supplements. But that's kind of
those are neat statistics.
Yes, a summary of that. So, I'll share some of that information in the wrap up of the course when I send out an announcement, so that students that aren't taking part in the virtual office hours can also kind of learn a little bit about who they've been taking the course with. And the other thing is the course. Oh, I didn't mention this. The course will, even after November 10th, the course, even though that's the date that the course will close for submitting assignments, submitting quizzes towards earning a statement of accomplishment or a certificate, the course will still be open. And it will remain open to anyone that's already enrolled in the course. So all of you that are enrolled in the course can still access the videos, the resources, the links, virtually anything.
Can they still do the discussion forum?
Discussion forum still open. So the course will be, quote, closed, but students can still engage, can still access for at least 6 months. The course will still be open to anybody that's already in the course. So, so that's very good. And maybe Heather will pop in from time to time and add to the growing Nutrition in the News list. We added a new tab for this offering called Nutrition in the News, in part because we were posting new news stories and new information in the discussion forum for students, but not everybody visits the discussion forum. So we decided that it would be a great thing to have it on the course page. So there is a tab on the left of your course page for Nutrition in the News. And Heather has done a marvelous job, thank you, of adding pertinent articles. We do receive a news list every day that Heather and I both take advantage of from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics that list any nutrition-related story, study that's coming out in the media and gives, the source of the study, and often gives links to the actual study itself. And so she's been, as those relate to our weekly topics, she's been adding those to the Nutrition in the News page.
Yes, and
So,
speaking
thank
of
you.
that weekly or daily email that we get, I printed off today's, and surprising enough, there were 2 different headings about food allergies.
Very applicable.
So, great. So one of the headings says, dietitians provide support to mothers of children with food allergies. And I looked at that article, and it was saying that in the United Kingdom, some researchers took some focus groups of mothers who had children with allergies, and it was more qualitative, just getting their thoughts on how dietitians can help these mothers with kids with food allergies. And they found several themes, and a couple of them were mothers saying that having a dietitian helps me to protect my child and keep them healthy. So that idea of helping keep their children healthy, and then also dietitians will teach them to be an expert. So just gaining more knowledge about food allergies and how to manage them. And it also helps promote my child's independence. So just living a more, normal as some of their peers. And then it's also an emotional support. So that's really neat just to see how dietitians can help families that have food allergies.
As you were sharing that support came to my mind because I know some parents that have children that suffer from food allergies. And sometimes they feel pretty alone in it, that they're trying to evaluate and make decisions that sometimes potentially are life-threatening. And, it can get kind of scary for parents. So having that support, having somebody knowledgeable about food allergies and that, you can actually rely on their advice, I would think would have, like you shared, a multitude of benefits. So
yeah. Plus the
so great.
practitioners see multiple patients with allergies, so they're good at comparing and sharing what works for other people.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. And then another heading in today's news was that the FDA here in the United States cautions against undeclared food allergens. Labels omitting certain ingredients are leading cause of FDA recalls. And that article was saying how in the United States it's a law to require the big 8 food allergens to be identified on labels, but sometimes manufacturers don't do that. They may forget, and they often voluntarily will remove those from the market. But this is just saying how they're working on improving testing for the presence of these possible allergens. And so, yeah, just really focusing on the consumer. And it says, which is good for all consumers who have food allergies, it encourages consumers to report any allergic reaction that they have to their local FDA consumer compliant coordinator. So that can be reported.
So
and
even if they
might find
don't have,
trends.
even if the label doesn't say that it contains an allergen, if they have a reaction to that food, that they should report that, because
Yes.
potentially it's there. It's just
Yes.
hidden or not declared.
Yeah, it could have been contaminated somehow. And if they find that a trend among multiple people, that'll be good for the manufacturer
True.
to know so they can remove that from
And
the
another
market.
aspect too is that these are just the main 8 allergens. There are other
Right.
food allergens. So, some of those may not be declared as well. So it is, perplexing. And I'm not sure in terms of other food labels internationally, how they deal with the issue of declaring allergens and letting consumers know what's either directly in the food or what could, like many of our labels say processed in a plant
that may contain
peanuts,
Peanuts.
soy, or other components that kind of a cross-contamination. So
yeah.
interesting.
I know we talked about the big 8 during our weekly material, but should we go over those real fast just for
Sure.
yours? So the big 8 food allergens, make sure I get all these.
I was
Milk,
going to say,
let's see if we
I'd
can-
have to think.
milk, peanuts and tree nuts, eggs, soy, wheat, shellfish, and fish.
Okay.
Correct? Let's see.
Yeah.
Yes, fish was one, right?
You
Or
just
soy.
took the exam. She
I
just
know.
took her registration exam.
It's hard when you're under pressure. But yes, we did talk about the big 8 during the week 7 materials. Just a couple other news topics. I included most of these in the nutrition in the news, so you can find links to them. But recently, some researchers did some tests on how they can make peanuts more or less or just have less allergens in them. And currently, like peanuts is one of the biggest here in the United States, and 2.8 million Americans have allergies to peanuts. So what these researchers tried was they found these, the protein that causes the allergy in peanuts, they took these enzymes and treated the peanuts to break down those proteins. So then they weren't whole proteins that would impact the consumer. So by using this treatment, they found that they could reduce the allergens in peanut products by 98 to 100%.
Wow.
So this is showing that if this process continues to work and gets approved by the FDA, then this could potentially allow people who are allergic to peanuts to eat peanuts, and there are a lot of health benefits to
In products
peanuts.
that would use that process.
Yeah, and they're starting to try it with wheat and tree nuts too.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's maybe the future, the direction that our food industry is going and related to allergies.
Very interesting. I hadn't heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because and the incidence so high, 2.8 million. That's a lot of people, and
Yeah.
a lot of children. I know my
Mhm.
10-year-old daughter a couple weeks ago. It seems invariably in her class she'll have someone with a peanut allergy,
Mm-hmm.
and of course all the parents in the class are advised not to send peanut butter sandwiches, not to send peanuts or any kind of peanut product in your child's lunch, just because of the risk of potentially affecting cross-contaminating the child that does have the allergy. And so my daughter, Glory, she said, I think it should be a law, that no school can have anything with peanuts in it.
Oh.
And we may come to that. We may come
Right.
to that. Right now, it's kind of just recommended, and usually parents within a classroom are alerted that there's a peanut allergy. But
Yeah.
maybe these kind of modifications would allow even school systems to serve some peanut products because they would be potentially safer for people.
And I just want to remind our audience that we are taking questions live. So if you're in Google Plus or Google Hangouts with us, feel free to type in your questions, and we're monitoring, and we can answer those during our virtual office hour.
Or try
today.
to answer them.
Yes,
we don't
we'll
have
do our
all
best.
the answers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think this next one that you mentioned to me as we walked over was really interesting.
So we have a holiday called Halloween coming up, and one of the typical things that we do here in America is that kids will dress up and they will go trick-or-treating. So they'll go house to house, and if the home is offering treats, the kids can go up and get treats. And so it's usually candy. So what's a big concern is with a lot of kids having food allergies,
That's true.
A lot of these candies have maybe peanuts in it or milk, soy. So these kids might not be able to really participate as much as they would like. So there's this new, just like, I don't know, a trend. Yeah, a campaign going on here in the U.S. called the Teal Pumpkin Project. And what it is, and it's all over social media right now, is that if you are planning to offer treats during trick-or-treat night, if you paint a pumpkin teal colored, you can put it outside your door, and this signifies to parents and children that this home offers non-food treats. So they might have outfits, pencils, Halloween erasers, all kinds of fun treats that kids can still enjoy, but not have to be worried about having an allergic reaction.
Well, I have not heard about the teal pumpkin. The blue, it says the blue tinted pumpkin out front, but I will certainly look for that on Friday. Here in the U.S., as Heather was mentioning, it is our traditional Halloween celebration where my oldest is often been a banana. She has a banana suit, but this year, and she's 19, so she doesn't go door to door anymore, but they have sometimes Halloween parties, and this year she's going to be Minnie Mouse.
Aww.
But my 10-year-old daughter is going to be a Greek goddess. Yes, in white flowing and such. And my youngest daughter is adopted from China, so she looks very cute as a Greek goddess. And so that will be a lot of fun. But I deal with on Halloween. She'll come home sometimes with a huge bag of candy, And I remember growing up that I would keep it sitting next to my bed, and my parents didn't police it very much. And I would often eat so much candy, I would feel ill, just because it was there and it was accessible. And now we kind of dole it out, and she doesn't tend to overeat on it. And I kind of get rid of it slowly, a handful at a time, in part for her, in part for me, because having all that candy in the house.
Yeah.
And there's certain types that, I love Snickers bars and certain things that we have here, and she doesn't like those. So she'll set all that aside for me, and I have to usually send it to work with my husband or something to get it out of the house. But, and I'm sure other countries around the world have similar type celebrations and traditions. But that's one that is just in 2 days here. So coming up quickly. So have we gotten any questions, Heather?
We do not yet.
Well, I know what we can do. One thing that's been fun about this course in all the offerings is that I, of course, teach undergraduate students here at Vanderbilt. At the same time, oftentimes I'm offering this course. So this semester I have 2 classes. One just wrapped up, and I have another introduction to nutrition class. Barbara, would you be willing to come up?
Sure.
So I have students within my class, and several of them serve as community teaching associates on the discussion forum. So this is Barbara.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And Barbara, I was sharing earlier, always sat near the front. You were always so interested.
Oh, I mean, it's the best.
And she also has aspirations towards a career in nutrition and dietetics.
Right, exactly.
Well, I thought it might be interesting because I really enjoy that my students are able to be involved in the course in some way. And Barbara, actually, I think you volunteered
Yes,
to,
I did.
to
Yep.
be part of the discussion forum. So what has been your perspective like in terms of engaging in a course like this?
So as I was listening to you kind of read off the statistics, I can tell that we're reaching a small number of people, no matter how many thousands of people and how many countries are represented.
True.
We're reaching only a little bit, and they're very interested in nutrition prior to the course. And I can see that shine through the discussions. People are obviously very well read or have very strong opinions about certain things. And I'm very pleased to see when we see a balanced discussion going on where people are citing certain sources or even personal experiences that they've had with, with in terms to food, with like their idea of a balanced diet or what they might be eating day to day.
Mhm.
So I like seeing the diversity of perspectives there on the discussion forum.
I love, if I had more time, I could stay on that discussion forum all the
Yeah,
time.
it's
just
addictive.
reading.
It is.
One thing you mentioned that made me think that we are reaching proportionally to the public, both here in the US and worldwide, a very small percentage of people with nutrition.
Right.
And we're reaching a group that's already pretty interested and
Yeah.
aware. But potentially, maybe from what they've learned in this course and also their own readings and passions and interests, they may influence other people. So it could go out even beyond the course.
True.
So it's
Right. And I'm hoping that it's very difficult to establish national policies, especially in the US, as far as I'm concerned, pertaining to nutrition and trying to change the way that we think about health in a preventative manner. You're a dietitian and you see these people day to day, especially as you're mentioning how dietitians can help mothers with kids who have allergies to know that they can be there for support and to know that this will be a chronic issue. And using people like dietitians and nutritional knowledge that you gained here, you can manage that chronic process on your own confidently.
Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned to me and have talked to me a little bit about your interest in pursuing a career in health and nutrition. So what are your thoughts? Heather and I are both registered dietitians. And Vanderbilt actually does not offer an undergraduate curriculum in dietetics. Really the only nutrition courses at Vanderbilt are the two through the School of Nursing that I teach.
Right.
So students really can't get a broad overall nutrition education here. They have to kind of pursue other avenues. So what are you thinking of futuristically?
Futuristically, first, before I say that, I am always surprised that it was only through my intense passion for nutrition that I had to type in nutrition to find your course. My personal view is that nutrition should be taught much earlier than college, hopefully, and I'm glad that everybody here has pursued learning about nutrition even post-college or post, some work life as well. But for me personally, I'd like to influence health policy and those other people that courses like Coursera aren't reaching in order to try to help the fact that 70% of our diseases are behaviorally caused. And that's a lot of money spent, a lot of undue processes we have to go through.
And it's challenging for individuals within an environment that doesn't support always healthy behaviors to follow through on those, because you have to actually be almost, quote, heroic to do so.
Right. You have to work against the system.
Yes.
To really, and if you live in a food desert, which we have one just a couple blocks away, like you said, it's difficult to know, even as the children that I work with, to know what's healthy and what's accessible, because down the block you don't have
Yeah.
something that's accessible like that.
You might explain to folks, because I don't think we've really talked about that in this course, what a food
Right.
desert is, and that they exist even in the U.S. that is
Yeah.
very food secure. You know,
Certainly.
we still have pockets of even, affluence that aren't affluent and don't have access. So maybe tell our folks about food deserts.
So food deserts, by definition, are basically places that are deserted and do not have access to healthy food. Like a typical grocery store will have a section for produce and meats, healthy fats, things that we have learned through the course that are healthy to have in your diet. However, food deserts are usually completely void of these things. And sometimes this will occur in larger regions, but this can also occur just a couple blocks away from where we're filming now. There's a food desert, and it's Vanderbilt's campus is definitely not a food desert for sure. So having those adjacent to each other proves that it's just these little micro environments where health is either very important, we're right around the medical center, or health is secondary. So having to kind of expand that even block by block is very important.
Yeah, and when you look at food deserts, like you said, very few of them, one characteristic is having lack of access to full service grocery stores or supermarkets, that they depend a lot on convenience stores, on fast food restaurants to get their food, and to get to a supermarket requires often,
Transportation.
transportation.
So if
and-
there's not like bus systems, or they can't walk there,
Yeah.
or if they don't have their own vehicle, it is difficult. Yeah, it creates
And
that.
I've talked to folks who, maybe they take the bus ride to get to the full service supermarket, but you physically can only carry a few
True.
bags,
True.
and when I go grocery shopping, I leave with 10, 20 bags oftentimes.
Especially
So,
produce is
yeah,
very
produce.
volume. I mean,
Heavy,
yeah,
right?
it's very heavy and takes up a lot of space relative to the amount of calories that you're going to have in those.
So what kind of suggestions do you give families or kids in those areas when the reality is they don't have access? So what can they do to maybe improve their diet?
Well, recently I was just in like a Hispanic supermarket down, I think Nolensville Pike. And I just wanted to see, we were actually there shopping for some specific Hispanic foods. And I was also at the same time kind of exploring what people have access to. And I remember the combination of rice and beans is a complete protein, if I understand that. And
generally
knowing that-
very affordable.
and extremely affordable. So it's just the case of, I think, knowing that these two are great in your diet. And if you have a little bit of planning, like if you just cook up a batch of rice and beans at the beginning of the week, it's a little easier to manage throughout the rest of the week. And then you can supplement with other things. And you don't necessarily have to have a healthy meal 3 times a day. If it's not part of your budget, or maybe it is more convenient for your work schedule, then sometimes it's just going to tend that way. But as much as possible to try to plan ahead, because it's easier for your budget and for your health.
Yeah. And I know sometimes even teaching people about the use of frozen vegetables in bulk and some of the things that they can keep on hand.
Right.
Because fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, are more perishable and sometimes hard to keep and utilize in time to keep the quality there. So some good points. Did you have any questions for Barbara?
No, but I like that we brought up the topic of food deserts, since we didn't talk about that in our course.
In I'm writing an introduction to nutrition textbook and just wrote up a chapter on food security and the concept of when you're food secure, you have access to a nutritious food supply, you have access to a safe food supply in terms of food safety, a sustainable food supply. And the U.S. enjoys a pretty high level of food security overall, but there is a pocket of about 15% of Americans that are not food secure. And some of them are the type of folks that you find in the food deserts. And there's other areas of the world where food insecurity exceeds food security.
Right.
So it's not just a matter of knowing about nutrition and knowing what you, quote, should eat, but actually being able to do it, to access those foods and get those foods. And, poverty and unemployment certainly can come into play when you are trying to help people. That
Right.
knowing and doing is not just, motivation, but it's also access and availability too,
Right.
and economics. So interesting. Yes. Did you do any work with like food deserts or some of that in your training and
Yes.
education?
Yeah, we did. So I think it's really important as health professionals that we know about these and where they're located so we can reach out to those areas and help them have access to healthful foods. And during my dietetic internship, which I did before becoming a dietitian, we did do a lot of work in the community and going to even like refugee sites here in the city and just seeing their lifestyle and what they can eat on a daily basis, and also just knowing the programs within your community that offer resources. Like here, there's like the farmers market, and there's different government programs that may help women or infants and children. So just knowing what resources you have available if you are in a food insecure area.
Yeah, interesting. There was actually an article too that came out, I forget what university published it, that looked at food security in college students. And they actually found a much higher level of food insecurity in college students than they did in the general population. In fact, they found that 60% of the college students in this study had experienced food insecurity at least once sometime during the previous year. That either because of economics, access, or other reasons, that, we kind of forget about college students. And it varied too, whether it was a public university or a private university, regionally, geographically, in terms of food security. Vanderbilt, I would assume, is a fairly high food secure environment. But even within Vanderbilt, there may be students that don't have the money or don't have, the ability to go and buy some of the products that might fulfill their nutrient needs better. So it's interesting.
Again, that goes back to what resources are available that they can use. And I also forgot to mention there's usually food banks within communities. Here we have a really large food bank, and also just emergency food box sites where I know I went and helped hand out food to people who, when you are in a crisis, you can go and get food for free.
And, in some of those circumstances, the nutrition becomes secondary to just eating,
Eating to
providing
live.
food for your family. And so it's an interesting area and an interesting, a lot of considerations around that.
Right. And I think that's, it's just a point of making it a priority and knowing how it may affect your life. And sometimes you should know that maybe there's a phase in your life where it's going to drop in priority. I think that the reason maybe that for college students it's lower in priority because you have this insecurity about your future anyways. So why also worry about nutrition? But I feel like it has so many positive effects on your life that it is worth it to bump that up a bit.
And some college students worry too much about it.
Yeah.
I have found.
Some will worry too much about it, and it will take up way too much time. It shouldn't be. I think that if you're a normal person, this isn't your livelihood. It's perfectly normal to just follow basic guidelines, just common sense. Drink your water, eat your veggies, sort of thing.
Good perspectives. So have we gotten any questions, Heather? And Barbara, you stay with us. You can help answer.
So again, we have about 15 minutes left. And if you have questions, just please send them in. This is our last virtual office hour. So we'll take the questions as we can.
Are they coming through? I'm going to ask our...
I don't see any questions.
Okay, so no questions
Wonder
yet.
if there's any problem. No?
I'm watching.
Okay. Well, we don't have to also fill the whole hour, Yes, no? I mean, I'm happy to keep babbling, but I really, we try to give half the virtual office hour towards, sharing information that's pertinent to the week, and then part of it to address questions. I'm trying to think back to the discussion forum, and maybe Barbara can help and Heather can help with this. What are some of the recent questions that have come up? I really was delighted last week too, when we were Yes, last week on nutrition and fitness. And people really enjoy Dr. Benardot's videos. So thank you, Dr. Benardot. I don't think he's tuned in, but I will thank him for contributing those, and just a little bit more about the science of food and fuel in relation to exercise in terms of for athletes and non-athletes as well. So that was great. And speaking of thanking, maybe this is a good time, and then we might get some questions, is to thank people. Thank people like my community teaching associates
Yeah, no problem.
that helped with the discussion forum. I had students. Heather recruited some of her fellow
Undergrads
undergrads
students.
from the university you attended, and some of your colleagues. I had a couple of new dietitian colleagues, and we even had a couple of previous students that were in past offerings that really demonstrated a great ability to engage in the discussion forum. Maybe not in terms of content experts, but in terms of keeping discussions going and, just responding in a really effective way. So we had many of those. So I really appreciate the contributions of my Heather. My goodness, this offering couldn't have happened without Heather.
Thank you.
She helped update the course over the summer, identified problems, and also made the second offering available as the third offering, and all that is required in doing that, and has continued to be active in the course throughout the offering of the course, through these virtual office hours, through updating the course, responding in the discussion forum, even though she's taken a brand new job and is also doing that. And of course, my Aiden, I always want to say Hoyle.
Team.
Hey, Aiden Hoyle, is that how?
Yeah.
She has just been amazing in terms of keeping us on top of things, addressing questions, helping coordinate and oversee the virtual office hours. And Jeff, I'm blanking on your last name. Shoup. Jeff Shoup. He is our production manager here with the Vanderbilt Institute for Digital Learning. Is that correct? And he's gotten all the love, and they were so kind 2 weeks ago to bring all our equipment and everything over to the demonstration kitchen to film when we did a live. I think you emailed me about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We did a live demo of a vegetarian 3-bean pumpkin chili that every drop was gone by the time we left.
Good.
Everybody ate it all. So that was great. And then action of the course, my videographers, Clay Sturgeon and Greg Tipton were amazing, and Keith Woods, the graphic designer who makes the videos look so good, even with the filming, they were amazing to help. And I hope I'm not all the folks that I interviewed, I really appreciate that, like Dr. Benardot's contributions in actually filming direct videos. And then Dr. Doris this week, Alex Gendelman, who is a Vanderbilt undergraduate who suffers from celiac. Well, I won't say he suffers because he manages it, so he does not suffer. And he talked to us about, avoiding gluten and how he does it within the context of a college life.
Right.
And some of the other weeks, Julie Kevadar, and I'm trying to remember all the folks, David McCarty from Smart Balance, who contributed a couple sessions and let us interview him, kind of a behind the scenes with a food manufacturer. And then Peter Menzel, in the first. Did you get to watch Peter Menzel's videos?
No, I didn't, but now I want to.
Yes, they were in the first week. And Peter Menzel is a photographer, and along with his wife, Faith, they traveled the world and photographed what people ate within a week.
I think you showed that in class, right?
I did share it in class. So what they, he spent a week with a family and then photographed their intake for a week. And when we were talking about the world, talking about food deserts and food security, that also kind of demonstrated the great differences between, different countries, different parts of the world, and what their food supply looks like.
Right.
And also, he also, and Keith, the graphic designer, also even included within those videos the little grocery receipt, so to speak, of what the cost was for whatever they were consuming. And so that was an interesting aspect. So lots of people helped make this course possible.
Yeah, even our Coursera team, just handling all the technical difficulties, was a huge help.
Andrina from Coursera, and of course folks like Doug Fisher, who heads up the Vanderbilt Institute for Digital Learning, and Guy 3, and just all kinds of folks that, this has certainly been a team effort. And we so appreciate all those folks in making this possible. So makes me almost want to cry, but we're almost done with the course. So it's been great. So no questions?
No
That
questions
sounds
have come in.
surprising. Trying to think of discussion forum. Can you think
Well,
of?
we didn't do a virtual office hour last week for sports, fitness and nutrition. So if you can think of any topics related to that.
Well, I was interested on the discussion forum. There was a whole thread, several threads relating to what do people do for activity and how do they stay active and what kind of
Yeah.
things do they do in their lives, and people that have gotten more active and shared some of the strategies they use.
Mhm.
And I shared that I own a treadmill desk, so that I bought about a year ago a desk that I can actually walk and work at the same time.
Mhm.
Can't walk very fast because you're working.
Yeah, at least you're standing.
You're
I get that
standing and you're
feeling.
moving. And, if I work 4 or 5 hours on a computer during the day on my treadmill desk, I can accumulate 8 to 10 miles.
Wow.
Even though I'm not getting cardiovascular benefit in the sense of my heart rate going up,
Right.
I'm moving.
Right.
And so that's been a great thing. Of course, not everybody can get a treadmill desk, but that was partly my defense when I started creeping up in weight, working so much on this course and on my book, that I was sitting at a computer much more than normal.
Right.
So that, and people just talked about, being involved, the social aspect of activities, the
Mhm.
accountability
That's
with other
huge.
people.
Mhm.
What do you do for exercise?
I just recently got into CrossFit and just go to a local gym, so it's close. And I do want to say that the community there is very important.
Mhm.
When people do go, you kind of keep accountable with each other, see the same people every week, of all ages, all backgrounds. And it's a great place to be. No matter what you do, I think a lot of people start out with team sports to have the team competition as well. It's kind of a bonding experience. Or if you're more of a lone wolf, then to even just to go once a year for a marathon or something, you still feel that group moving together and having a similar goal in mind.
That's true. And
Yeah.
and within the context of college life, you likely walk a lot as well,
Oh,
just
yeah.
for daily activity.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's really important to do that. Heather, what kind of things do you do?
I love lifting and running. So I enjoy running outside if the weather's good. And like you said, running with somebody, I'm more accountable. I have a gym where I work at my company. So that's
Oh,
just
that's
a great
convenient.
resource
That's
to
nice.
have. And like you mentioned with your desk earlier, one thing I like to do is have an exercise ball as like my desk chair. So it's like you're constantly working on your core stability.
I have one of those in my
Yeah.
office.
So little things like just making changes in your lifestyle. You can incorporate more activity. So that, or making a standing desk if you can't do the treadmill desk.
Right.
Now, I wear a pedometer. I don't have it on today, actually, but I
Uh-huh.
usually wear a pedometer to track steps as well. And that's really reinforcing to me is I kind of look at my numbers and I really try to average 10 to 12,000 steps a day. And I have to walk intentionally to get to that level. If I just do life, I don't get anywhere near it.
That's true.
So I have to go and take walks. I have to build in ways to just move more to get up to that kind of average on a basis. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean every day I get 10 to 12,000, but some days I might get 17 or 18,000 when
And
I go
it'll
take.
average out.
And it's
Right.
the average that's important. You talked about lone wolf. I'm a lone wolf exerciser.
Right. And that's completely fine because I'll feel the same way sometimes. It's
You know.
just something you zone in on
Yes.
and want some time away from people, especially when you work with people all day.
Mhm.
I'm sure that you feel the same way. And maybe if you take a phone call, you can go for a walk then,
Yeah.
Just kind
Right.
of trying
That's a
to
good idea.
fit
I
it in.
stand up at my desk sometimes just to take a call because
Yeah.
rather than sitting,
Mhm.
particularly if I'm not doing other things. And one of the way I exercise too is I go to our park. We have a beautiful park near my home, and I listen to audiobooks. They're
Mhm.
like my addiction is
true.
audiobooks. I love
great.
audiobooks. So I'll go and I'll be totally engaged and, walking at the same time as I listen to my book. And sometimes my husband will say, do you want me to go with you? I'm like, that's okay.
Some
My
time
time.
alone. Yeah.
Because
Stress
it's just,
reliever.
and I look so forward to it. So, that's
Yeah.
great. And, exercise doesn't have to be drudgery. And
Right.
one concept that I don't think we talked a lot about, but I did put it in the discussion forum, is the concept of NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Right.
And it's the kind of things you do within the context of your day.
Mhm.
It's the fidgeting you do, it's the moving around, it's doing things that aren't necessarily formal exercise. And when you look at activity expenditure over time, it constitutes a greater percentage of your total energy expenditure than does like the formal exercise activities.
Right.
So it's, and I think that's the key for many people, is finding ways they can incorporate more movement
Mhm.
into just their life.
Right.
And that, that over time can make such a difference for
Yeah.
people. And now that you're health coaching folks, you
I
probably
know I have some good ideas. Some other tips that I've recommended to people is just parking farther away,
Yeah.
maybe at the grocery store, just so you have farther to walk, or taking the stairs at work. What else? And it's so important. Like the recommendations here in the United States, the guidelines are to get 150 minutes of physical activity a week. So that's like 5 days, averaging about 30 minutes a day. And
that's just mainly to maintain. That's not necessarily to lose weight or keep weight off. It's
Mhm.
Just something you should have.
Yeah.
And I think you as a health coach can see that it takes also not just changing like habits, but you need to also change your mindset, because it is a full day, full week, full month, like full life sort of aspect. And you can't just say like, I'm going to go to the gym and this hour of my day is going to determine how I feel or how I look. It's you have to just keep that mindset. And I think some people might find that exhausting, but if you switch it up enough, if you make it fun enough, it's it'll stick with you.
Yes.
You have great perspective,
Yeah.
Barbara.
Just
You
finding
do have
something you
great
enjoy.
Yeah.
Another cool way to look at it is a day has 24 hours, and it's recommended to do physical activity for about a half hour.
Right.
So just think like, if you're dedicate a half hour of your day to exercise or some sort of physical activity, you have 23 and a half hours to do whatever you want.
Everything else.
Yeah, so
everything
it's
else.
only a half hour. So it can be difficult to fit in. And one thing is that you can break that half hour up, so you can do increments of 10 minutes. So if you have a really busy work day, if you can find 10 minutes maybe at lunch to spend walking outside, or
And 10 minutes later, and
Mhm.
yes, and then
That's
still, even outside of that 30 minutes, just to find ways to stand versus sit, which
Right.
burns twice as many calories.
That's what we're doing now.
Which we're standing, we're not sitting.
I feel like your body feels that as you sit or as you lay or something. Your body in motion wants to stay in motion. Body at rest wants to stay at rest. So I
Exactly.
feel like if I get up every so often, then it just breaks up my day a little bit too.
Yeah, they say the hardest part of like walking or getting out the door for a run is that first step out the door. Because
Yeah.
once you're engaged and you're out there, I remember hearing a wonderful quote. I can't even remember who wrote it. It was, the motivation to do work is found in the work.
True.
That, you get into it and then you just keep going.
Right.
So, it's really great. It's really great.
And Heather, I'm sure as a runner or a lifter, I think some people will have a misconception of people who are healthy, that you just naturally want to do it all the time. And I think that in an extent, yes, being healthy, I look forward to it. But there are days where I don't want to go for a run, or I don't want to quite eat right or something. But I think maybe for at least the activity for the first 5 minutes, I'll just tell myself I'll run for 5 minutes. And after those 5 minutes, either, especially if I'm sick or maybe I'm feeling sore, that first 5 minutes will determine if it was just procrastination or just not wanting to get into it, or if it was truly a concern, I should just listen to my body and say, maybe I should just take a day off and take it easy.
And not to be too hard on
Yeah.
ourselves
Yeah.
about all that.
Yeah, because there's always tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I also caution against saying there's always tomorrow, but
put it off.
But I think that sometimes you just need to know, especially once you get used to healthy habits, you feel like in order for it to be a habit, it needs to be every single day.
Yeah.
And in some cases,
No.
that might be counterproductive.
And I think I've shared with my students and within the context of this that, we don't have to be 100%, like in terms of food, I try to make healthy choices and generally do a good 80% of the time, but I give myself some elbow room. I have that extra glass of red wine from time to time
Right.
or chocolate chip cookies. I mean, I wouldn't want to live life without that.
Yeah.
It would be a sad world.
Yes. So
Yeah.
people don't have to be perfect. It's finding that balance. But then some people, instead of being 80-20 with 20% being less than healthy, are the flip side,
Mhm.
or 80-20. And so maybe their goal would be just to gradually move that percentage,
Yeah.
not to necessarily overnight go to 100%. So
No, it
every
always
little
fails
choice.
pretty much if you try to do a 180-degree shift. And even for me, 180-degree shift for me would be like going vegan. And I've been considering that for a while, and it's just something different for me. But right now, I could not imagine going 100% without animal products. And so that would be really hard to maintain. So again, I'd have to take it step by step.
Right.
I'm not just saying no meat,
Yeah,
no nothing.
that's right.
Right away.
And, speaking of that, there was a thread that people were concerned that I was really endorsing and pushing a vegan lifestyle on all the students. And that certainly was not the case. I mean, I think it's undeniable that plant-based diets have multitudes of health benefits,
Right.
but whether exclusively plant with no meat is ultimately the answer is not clear. That I think the emphasis on plant foods is the important thing to consider. And I love the terms plant-centered, plant-based, plant strong, not necessarily animal-free, because I'm not a vegan.
Right.
I still enjoy, particularly like Parmesan cheese on my pasta and
True.
my Greek yogurt for breakfast. And I still enjoy, fish and chicken and those things too. I don't necessarily have those as often as I do beans and rice and other things, but it's interesting. It's a lot to think about. And I hope this course has given you a lot to think about. That's part of the point, is just to open up areas. And one purpose of the course too is not just to gain information and knowledge, but to also provide ways where where you can go find creditable, good information. I introduced students into PubMed so that they could actually look at medical research, to read about things, and also some of the other websites that provide pretty sound, credible, evidence-based information. And hopefully being able to evaluate not only their own diet and questions, but what they read, what they hear, and be able to even maybe address friends' questions or families' questions and such.
Speaking of having resources like that, we do have a question, and we are we're out of time, but we'll go ahead and address this question. Helene asks, can you recommend sources of information on non-celiac gluten sensitivity? So non-celiac.
Yeah,
gluten
I've heard of
sensitivity.
that, where it's not, if you get it tested, you won't come up as, having celiac disease, but you will still feel intolerance towards any sort of gluten-containing ingredients.
I'm actually not right off the cuff can think of any resources that are directly related to non-celiac intolerance, gluten intolerance. I would assume that many of the resources for celiac or for gluten-free diets would also benefit,
Right.
people that may not have celiac. And maybe looking on the course page for week 1, we list a lot of resources there, both from within the videos and then resources at the end. So sorry, I can't think of anything directly.
Right. Yeah, but there are some good organizations, I think, that would have
Yes, that would
resources for
support
that. Okay, well, to wrap up, I think just to remind people, can you remind them when they can see their grades and when they'll get their certificates?
Okay. The course, this is the last week of content, week 7, but the course remains open for assignments, for quizzes, and all those submissions through November 10th. So we leave it open an extra week. After that, we will close the course in terms of those, but the course will still be accessible to everybody with everything. And then we will release certificates the week of the 10th, and we'll alert everyone by email when those are available, because you will be downloading your own. Those won't be mailed, but those will be downloadable from the website. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Barbara. This was a great
thank you.
addition.
Thank you.
And Heather, of course. Thank you, Jeff and Aiden. And we won't see you back. So thank you for participating, and best wishes to everyone.